Let me tell you about a place of gold and adventure. This place of wonder and majesty is Timbuktu. The very name conjures images of a faraway place, full of mystery and unimaginable wealth. For nearly 400 years between the 12th and 16th centuries, Timbuktu was one of the Islamic world's greatest cities. Scholars from all over the Islamic world came to her world-famous libraries. The manuscripts here number in the tens of thousands. Few places in the world could claim a scholarly and literary tradition as vibrant as hers, but today, Timbuktu is nothing more than one of the number of small settlements in the Sahel region of northern Mali. Modern Timbuktu's impoverished and malnourished population of a little over 50,000 struggle alongside their magnificent inheritance. The intellectual and economic decline started over 500 years ago when in 1591 an army of mercenaries sent by Moroccan Sultan Ahmed al-Mansur captured the city in search of gold. The resulting loss of political autonomy slowly chipped away at Timbuktu. In the following centuries, rulers came and went, but Timbuktu's fortunes remained bleak. Eventually, Timbuktu came into regular European contact, and by the late 19th century became part of French West Africa. After independence, the city and her legacy became part of the new, multicultural nation of Mali. Despite over 40 indigenous languages and ethnic groups present, there was relative harmony among the ethnic groups. However, over the years, claims of unfair treatment of the Tuareg people, an ethnic group with Berber origins, spilled out in open conflict in 2012. Thus, northern Mali, the homeland of the Tuaregs and of Timbuktu, became a battleground. The Mali Civil War had begun. In the following years, the rebels, allied with several powerful Islamic groups, seized many of Mali's most important northern cities. Of them, a weltering and impoverished city was one of their chief objectives. That city was Timbuktu, for as the rebels and Malians knew, Timbuktu was not just a city, but an idea. From this conflict, we will understand what Timbuktu represents to the people of the Sahel, and that is worth more than its weight in gold. The National Movement for the Liberation of Azawad, henceforth known as MNLA, has its origins in the nomadic Tuareg people who have, since 1916, occasionally sparred with government forces. Citing feelings of being marginalized by the Mali government, the forces of the MNLA seek independence for a nation called Azawad. Many of the MNLA insurgents had fought in the breeding grounds of the Libyan Civil War. Translated to mean defenders of the faith, the militants of Ansar Dine are an Islamic group led by Ayad Ag-Ghali. With possible ties to Al-Qaeda of the Islamic Maghreb, this group seeks the implementation of Sharia law across a united Mali. Many are of Tuareg origin, and as the MNLA, many fought in the Libyan Civil War. Along with Ansar Dine, there was a host of other Islamic groups not covered in this video. In particular, the movement for oneness and jihad in West Africa was heavily active during the conflict. On January 16, 2012, armed with heavy weapons from Libya, rebels assaulted the small town of Menaka. Over the next few weeks, small settlements exchanged hands until a February assault on Kidal, a regional capital, displayed that this was no common insurrection, for the forces of the MNLA were united with Ansar Dine and other Islamic groups. By March 14th, the rebels were within 125 kilometers of Timbuktu. As a result, on March 21st, soldiers dissatisfied with the government's efforts attacked the Minister of Defense, and later that day they stormed the palace of the president. The next day, Captain Amadou Sango announced via television that the government had been overthrown, and that his National Committee for the Restoration of Democracy and State would rule the country until the rebels were defeated. However, the coup was condemned by the international community. With promises of intervention and lifting of sanctions, a deal was brokered in which members of the coup were granted amnesty, and Speaker of the National Assembly, Dioncounda Traoré, would take over as president. However, during the uncertain times of the coup, rebel forces captured northern Mali's three largest cities, Kidal, Gao, and Timbuktu on 3 consecutive days. Content with their gains, the forces of the MNLA declared the independent state of Azawad. While the government forces organized, the coalition of nationalist and Islamic forces collapsed. While the nationalists were moderates, content with their newfound nation, Nasser Deni wanted Mali united under Sharia law. Because of their conflicts of interest, war broke out between the factions, and a new phase of the war began. Between June and November of 2012, the forces of the MNLA clashed with the Islamic groups they had formerly allied with. Culminating in the Battle of Gao, the nationalists slowly splintered and lost all they had gained. Following their defeat at the hands of the Islamists, the MNLA realigned with the Malian government. For them, self-rule within Mali was better than total annihilation. Despite the realignment, Islamic forces had advanced within 600 kilometers of the capital by January 2013. It was at that point the French started Operation Serval. The combined French, African, and Malian forces blitzed their way through northern Mali, and by February the Islamists had been driven from the major cities of the north. While occasional guerrilla fighting persists even to this day, the civil war had ended. But the question remains, why Timbuktu? For each faction, Timbuktu represented more than a place. It was an idea that meant something to them. For the MNLA, Timbuktu was the centerpiece of their culture. After all, Timbuktu had Tuareg origins. For the Islamists of Nasser Deni, Timbuktu represented their greatest foe, for the manuscripts in her great libraries were of Sufi origins. To subjugate the city of their ideological enemies to proper Sharia law was of utmost importance. Lastly, Timbuktu was a source of national pride to the nation of Mali, such that, once it was retaken, it was chosen as the site for the meeting of French President Francois Hollande and Malian President Dioncounda Traoré. It is because of this, the historical heritage and the implications of her glorious past, that Timbuktu, no matter the state of her affairs, will always be the heart of Africa.